Hey, everybody. Today is Thursday, January 13th, and it's the Prove It Life podcast, back almost to its regular scheduled time, give or take an hour or so. But we are here. We have a good show for you planned today. We have Dr. Rodney White, a chiropractor from Omaha, Nebraska, who may have come here via Australia and may have played college baseball in Australia, which kind of goes with the show. But he'll be talking to you about getting healthier in this COVID time. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my very handsome co-host and engineer, Mike Ferry and Ryan Gagne Fruities.
Oh, you're switching it up. You're switching it up.
Because he gives me that look that I don't like. Because I think that's your job. Him? Like I announce you, then you announce him, but he gives me the look. Right. So I just
no, it's not
now
so
I
much
give it both, and now
me not getting announced. It's I don't know. Just I don't know.
Well, because now what am I going to do?
I know. See, that's what I'm saying, right?
All right.
It's well, kind of whatever.
Let's give it a whirl.
All right. Well, something we can do now, right?
No, just got to roll with it.
I got to go with it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prove It Live podcast. I am Mike Ferry from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, along with the aforementioned Dr. Kevin McGovern of Perfect Sports Motion. And I feel like it's lackluster, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the also aforementioned Ryan Gagne Fruities, our producer at large. So we've got a fun show today. I'm going to kick it off in a traditional fashion. We got some top of the order notes. We actually haven't had any in a couple of weeks. There's like really been nothing noteworthy really in sports news, but it's particularly baseball. But Gags, what do we have?
So a couple of things coming out of MLB today and yesterday. Yesterday, I'll go back. Jon Lester pitched in the big leagues for like 14 years, I think it is. Nearly 2,500 strikeouts to his credit, 200 wins on the nose, 3 World Series titles, including 2 here in Boston, where Mike and I root for the Red Sox. He is decided to hang up the spikes. He's calling it a career and retiring. Great career. And it's kind of harks back to something we talked about a few weeks ago. The fact that I don't know if we'll ever see another 200-game winner, right? And Lester retired on the nose with 200 wins. He might be the last that will do so. Do you guys think that his credentials have him Hall of Fame worthy, or what?
Well,
not until Kurt Schilling gets in, right?
Well, it depends. Well, we all know why Kurt Schilling's not in right now.
Yeah,
it's nothing to do with his baseball, and that's sort of the point I was getting at. Is another, and we're not going to talk about this, but since you brought that up, it depends on who's voting, because we had a guy right here, sports writer in Boston, that did not, was not voting for David Ortiz. I don't know, he's easily one of the.
I think I missed that note.
Shaughnessy. I think it was Dan Shaughnessy, if I remember correctly, and I want to smear him if I'm not sure, but I'm quite sure that's who it was.
Oh, that's who it is.
Yeah.
But the good thing is no one reads the Globe or Shaughnessy, so that's
correct. No one listens to Shaughnessy. But the sad part is, like, why are we still doing it this way? The sports writers are so insignificant now anyway. I mean, come on, like that's not how you're getting your sports news anymore for the most part, right? And any sports writers that carry any weight whatsoever, it's not really through their columns. It's more through their side gigs. Like, they work on a local sports station, or they're on a local radio sports station. Right. I mean, but so, yeah, it depends on who's voting. You have these people that like wield this, like their power, like a sword. And they come up with these cockamamie, reasons why they're not going to vote for somebody. It's just ridiculous. So who knows? What do you think, Kev?
Did you see real quick? Did you see who Shaughnessy did vote for? The only person he voted for?
Yeah, Jeff Kent.
2 years in a row.
Jeff Kent, the only person. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, should we go to an achievement based, like golf is? I forget what the golf is, but you win a certain amount of tournaments, you're automatically, like, Phil Mickelson's in the Hall of Fame already, and he's still playing.
Right.
I think Tiger. So. Like you look at a guy like Fred McGriff, who said well over 400 home runs, he's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, should there be criteria that's just or that's weighted that, that goes, that the sports writers are, have a piece of it, but not someone's whole Hall of Fame, career in I mean, we know guys that, we can name them, the Pete Roses, the Roger Clemens, the Barry Bonds,
yeah,
should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, and then again, the hypocrisy of the Hall of Fame is there's Pete Rose, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds things in the Hall of Fame, like, sneakers, cleats, whatever, game jerseys, but not them.
Right.
So yeah, it's,
I mean, why not have living members of the Hall of Fame vote?
I think that's what the NFL does too, right? Do they do that?
Yes,
I think they do that.
It's at least a part of it, I believe. Yeah. Right. I mean, there should be, put it this way, there should be certain criteria that I think just get you in.
Right.
Or at least, put you in a, maybe something where you need less votes. I don't know. Maybe your stats become, like, certain stats can become a vote or something. I don't know, but something's got to be done, because it's like, I mean, Gags, read that list. Do you have that list there where the Shaughnessy? So it had the one I saw had the entire ballot, showed everybody on the list.
Yeah.
Kevin, listen to this list.
Yeah. So everybody on the list here.
You don't have to read all of them, but
this is who he's
some big
voted
names
for.
No. He only voted for Jeff Kent out of all these people.
Voted for Jeff Kent.
Oh,
yep. And so, and I'll give you I'll give you the 4 that are in their final year on the ballot, which is Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Schilling, and Sammy Sosa.
Unreal.
Okay? Then there's other guys. Let's see, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Billy Wagner, Andy Pettit, David Ortiz, again, first year on the ballot here.
Why would he not vote for Pettit or Wagner? Like, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Todd Helton, I mean, there's a bunch of guys on there that are deserving of votes, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I don't know if Shaughnessy took the stance of not voting for a first-year player on the ballot, which, guys like David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez are, in their first year on the ballot. But,
but Mariano broke that. So
I agree. Right.
Right.
I mean, you talked about, certain criteria should automatically qualify you, to get in. There should be certain criteria that allow you to vote for the Hall of Fame. Like, you need to, again, whether it's be a former player, a current Hall of Famer, whatever it is, it needs to be somebody that it doesn't just write about the sport for a living because they weren't good enough to play it.
I don't understand that. First of all, wasn't the whole, I don't know the origin of not voting for a first year guy, but didn't it have something to do with, like, hey, Babe Ruth wasn't a first year unanimous ballot, so nobody ever should be, and it was something. But even that, so it doesn't matter what the origin.
Babe Ruth should have been. Right?
Of course,
it was wrong then. It's
it's wrong now.
Right.
I agree.
It's just dumb.
It is really dumb, and it's like
we definitely need a marker, like we did. You hit 400 home runs, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I mean, or at least you got 1 foot, at least if you go, what is it, 5 years, you're up for, how long do you stay eligible for? 10?
Well, it's 5 years after, and then I think 10.
It's 5 years after, and I think you can be on for like 8 years, 7 or 8 years, maybe.
Yeah. So maybe after that, then it goes to the eligibility requirement. Hey, you won 250 games, you're in the Hall of Fame. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something like that. I don't know.
I mean, Ortiz, right? Just looking, just some of his stats, right? 541 home runs, 286 career batting average. He's got 3 World Series titles. He's a 10-time All-Star, arguably the best DH that there's ever been. I mean, what are we doing?
I don't think that's arguable. Right?
Oh,
well, you get Edmar.
Is there talk about him not being a Hall of Famer? I mean, he's arguably the best clutch hitter I've ever seen.
Correct.
And trust me, he's killed my Yankees enough times.
Right.
Yeah. He's
a first year guy, but you got guys like Manny Ramirez with 555 career home runs,
Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. That's it.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be because of his issues with whatever.
And by the way, I mean, just again using your eyeballs, using common sense. If you watch the game during that era, if he was on that PED list, it wasn't like some of these other guys. I mean, please. And arguably, you could make an argument. Okay, don't want people to go crazy, but you could make an argument. He's the best right-handed hitter that we've ever seen. Definitely one of the top 3, 4 in our generation for sure. And again, let's get back to what this thing's called. It's called the Hall of Fame. He one of the most famous baseball players, right? Anyone that knows baseball knows Manny Ramirez, knows David Ortiz, etc. These guys have made themselves famous by the way they performed on a baseball field. It's just insane. I mean, I wouldn't even, it would hurt my brain to go back and look at some people that are in the Hall of Fame from like the 70s and even 80s and compare the numbers to some of the guys we're talking about. It's just silly. Totally silly.
Yep, I agree.
So
in other MLB news.
Oh, good.
Okay, before we move on.
So if he's got on, I want to get this in right before we move on.
All right. God, Gags. Fire
MLB,
away.
obviously, there's been a lockout here for a few weeks now, with no real news to kind of bring to the table. But today they are set. MLB and NLBPA are set for a bargaining session today via Zoom, in an effort to work toward a new collective bargaining agreement. The MLB initiated a sit down, and they're going to propose some stuff, some court changes, competitive issues, so on and so forth. This is the first meeting that's taken place since the lockout began on December 2nd. So, and that meeting famously lasted 7 minutes. So hopefully this goes a little longer.
Who's representing the two sides now? Like, I forget. I used to be. I remember Donald Fear, like years ago. Who's on what side now?
I think Tony Clark is the
players.
Is the players.
Okay.
And it might still be Donald Fair, to be honest with you. I don't know. No, Fair is executive director of the NHLPA. So I don't know. I'm not going to waste my time looking that up right now. But don't
waste your precious time.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. Kev has pressing stuff he wants to get to.
Well, it's not.
See before. But the good news is, long and short of it, good news is they are getting back to the table today. They do have a kind of like a soft deadline of March 1st, to have something in place in order to be able to get in a full 162 game season, have it start on time at the end of March. So we'll see how things shape up here in the coming weeks.
All right then.
All right.
Yeah, so I had I know we're not as big as some podcasts like Joe Rogan or stuff like that.
We're close.
I know we're close. So we had a very kind of interesting story that I just got all the facts from 2 days ago. So I have a client in my Acton office who has a daughter who lives in Bend, Oregon, so all the way on the left coast. And he listens to our podcast, and he was out in Bend visiting his daughter, and the town was doing some sort of winter solstice fire thing in the middle of town. And he struck up a conversation with a gentleman whose son is a rabid baseball fan, and he's like, "Wow, my physical therapist that I go to, they have this like kind of sports health kind of baseball podcast." And the guy's like, "Is it Prove It Live?" And this guy almost fell over. He's like, "Yeah." So, I mean, I don't even know what the chances of that even happening. It's just like insane that like that ran into someone in Oregon, Bend, Oregon, who listens to our show.
That's great.
Shout out to our fans in Bend, Oregon. We appreciate your listenership.
Yeah, we're spreading our wings. Love it.
We certainly like that.
All right. So, as everyone knows, we typically do our why would you do that at the end of the show? It's a thing that we typically wrap up with, but we do have a guest coming on today. So we're going to switch up the order, right? Shuffle the batting order a little bit today. And we're going to do our Kevin. Why would you do that? We're going to do that now instead.
Now.
So,
okay, good.
In all truth and fairness, okay, there we go. Now we got my answer. I was going to say, I'm not sure if we decide just to do one or a couple?
Yeah, we got a couple.
Okay. All right. So this one, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. Go ahead and play that.
Yeah. So wait, is this a what? I don't. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they're practicing.
Just power bunting.
Slapper chops.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, slapper chops.
Yeah. So, and it looks like that, she's doing a good job with it, I guess, because she's trying to get it into that hula hoop there.
Oh, that you're literally aiming for that hula hoop.
Oh yeah. She's aiming for the hula hoop. This still exists in the sport of softball. So it's not like it's that weird, but I'm here to lobby for full and utter removal of said skill and the game of softball. It's not as big as it was. Okay. And by the way, a lot of, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think a big reason for that is modern day metrics, right? So, we know that, you want to put the ball in the air, et cetera. So we've gone on about that, but, this is if you've seen softball, fast pitch softball, this is where a hitter will kind of stand towards the back of the box and literally be moving, like walking almost towards the pitcher and trying to slap the ball the other way, trying to get down the hole. Right. Exactly.
So not snap it.
Slap it.
But slap it.
Slap it. Yep. And by the way, you see the swings. Sometimes you see more full swings. Sometimes you see swings actually like this, where it's almost in between a swing and a bunt. Again, you ask me why I don't like it. Well, I don't see you getting any doubles, triples, home runs by this. And I think you're on offense in that batter's box. And while there's occasions where, you got a bunt, etc., right? The percentages say that you should stay back and drive the ball. I don't like this. I don't like it.
Mike,
I don't like it.
Was it you that told me that you've faced a team this year who bunted every single time?
Yes.
Every time this year, right?
Correct. More. Yeah. And if we're speaking in general terms, more than once, when I say every time, right? So, it wasn't, put it this way, it would be totally common to be in a tournament and every team that you face bunts at least 50% of the time. That's not uncommon.
Is that just to
well, because hey, dude, you got to get that
the third baseman misplaying the ball and trying to get out in an error, or
correct,
can't make the play. Or
Kev, these aren't even like typical bunt for hits. These are like they turn like it's a sacrifice.
They square up.
They square. But and it's because look, dude, whatever you got to do to get that 12 UW, right? Hey, whatever you got to do. They're banking on the fact that even if a 12-year-old plays it pretty well, doesn't make an error, fields it clean. They don't have the arm strength to get it there in time, right? Or they might take a little bit long to get rid of the ball or whatever. Or God forbid, also you could have a couple of 12-year-olds confused between, the pitcher and the third baseman and whose ball it is, et cetera. So it amazes me how important the emphasis on winning at 12U softball. It's like, it's way different than baseball. For the most part, and Ryan would agree with me here. And this has evolved, by the way, but especially recently, in the last, say 5 to 8 years or whatever, more and more programs that I've seen, that I've run into are more about development with their team. They don't care about they want their kids getting reps. They want to play. Of course, everybody wants to win, but with softball, what I've seen, it's like, man, it's like, win at all costs. And again, you have now this happened twice. The one year I was telling you about, Kevin, that was actually a 14U game last year. And, verbal cues for bunts and everybody. And it was against us. Our team executed, I think all but 2 of them. So they lost. Our girls won. But yeah, that's unreal. Yeah. I don't even know what to say. You got to know, we don't practice bunting. I'll be honest with you. We really don't. We will in season here and there. And you know what? You should know how to sacrifice bunt. When you need to get a runner over, you should know how to do that. But again, those are very specific. There's a very specific reason you do that. That's the tying run, go ahead, run late in the game, whatever. And you got to get that runner in a scoring position. Now, again, this is youth sports. So number one, there's lots of ways they can get there anyway. There's probably going to be a pass ball or a wild pitch, right? There's errors. There's, obviously a base hit. There's lots of ways that runner can get over anyway. But you should know how to do that. So I fault nobody for practicing how to bunt with a sacrifice bunt. Everybody should know how to do it. But I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? Nobody on, we're squaring. Crazy. Anyway.
No, this next video, we're gonna stick with softball, and this is
this the
caption on this is path to the ball.
What's that? This old house drill.
Let's take Bob Vila's mallet hammer right here.
This is old house. Okay.
All right. So does anyone want to start this, or you let me have at it?
I mean, there's a million things wrong with this, right?
I know there's completely no movement with the lower body, which is
right.
And that's the number one thing I saw. I get what they're trying to do. So obviously,
cause medial epicondylitis.
Right. Well, here's
what I was thinking.
What was that called again?
Medial epicondylitis, like Tommy John area.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Ankylosing spondylitis.
Yep.
I just like saying that. I don't even know what that is.
That's a big. Yeah, you don't want that. We can talk to Dr. White about that. I don't want that.
All right. So the first thing that's wrong with this is Kevin already pointed out there's zero hip movement. There's no turn of the body. So the hips don't turn 90 degrees, which is the only way you're going to get proper hand path is if you turn your body first and your belt buckle is facing the center fielder or pitcher. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing, and maybe not coincidentally, she's hitting us with the wrong part. So they gave her a mallet here. So people that are just listening, there's a softball player here with a mallet in her. She's a lefty, and it's in her left hand, her top hand. She's not turning her hips. Her feet are staying pointed straight, and she's hitting the softball with the mallet, with the side of the mallet you would typically use when using a mallet. However, you see how she's finishing. Right. See how she's finishing. She's kind of finishing with the hook. She's coming around the ball. So when she's finishing it, that part of the mallet that you want to hit the ball with is facing to her right. That's the only way you're going to get to that ball is by using a path like that. So if you're using this specifically for hand path, number one, you have to turn the hips first, because if you don't, you get the hand path that she's doing here, which you don't want with the bat in your hands. So unless that's the point.
Well, I mean, I could
not a good point.
Literally, she's destroying her elbow. I mean,
yep.
What's a mallet weigh? A couple pounds, right? And she's just whacking this
couple
mallet
of two
and holding her, and forcing her elbow into extension,
right?
While holding this literally like this horizontal chop.
What's this?
Where all the force is going through the elbow, and there's no. I mean, her belt at the end, you can see move a little bit, but there's literally I mean, this is, I always say, like, you can have a bad hitting coach and you can go 0 for 36, right? With 13 strikeouts, right? If you have a bad pitching coach, you might end up on the operating table.
Right.
This is one that blurs the lines of that, because this is truly a dangerous drill for this girl. She could literally hurt her elbow.
I've seen it. It does exist, Kev, for sure. I mean, it's not as prevalent, obviously, as overhand pitching, but we have had players that have had elbow issues, and actually we've had them with at least one softball player that was new to us from just swinging like that for so many years. And by the way,
so you've seen this drill locally to you?
Not this drill, but I've seen this flaw in hitting. And so, and by the way, this is.
So what do you think this is actually supposed to be doing? If this drill was correct or whatever, what is this promoting or trying to accomplish? Which it's not, but what do you think it is?
Here's the best way to explain it is, let's say you have a wooden bat, right? And you want to make contact on the label side. Okay. Now It used to be you want to be on the side. Now it's label side. So the head of the mallet represents that label, that point of contact, the sweet spot,
okay,
whatever, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting contact here with your palm up. Okay. Maybe that's as simple as that. They're trying to get her to get palm up contact. The problem is that, if done properly, when you turn, you're going to hit the mallet on the proper side of the mallet with your palm up. You're going to extend through. And that business end of the mallet is still going to be pointed towards the pitcher. What's happening here, because there's no hip turn, because the elbow's crashing underneath the wrist rather than staying behind the wrist so you can extend and punch, her elbow's crashing and she's hooking. She's actually coming around the ball. So she's hitting at that point of contact on the business end of the mallet, but the business end of the mallet, I have no idea what the term is for that, by the way. So I keep saying that. It ends up being pointed towards, as a lefty, the first base dugout. Right. So that's it shows you the path that she's making, just in how it starts and how she finishes. And again, as always, folks, I'm making a guess at what the point is here. But again, huge. I'm glad you pointed that out. And look, Kev, actually, right. Can you pause that there? See when she's quote unquote loading her hands, watch right there. Boom. Ryan's getting very good at that. All right.
Yes.
So this is not where your hands would be when you're loaded at all. Right. At all. I mean, I can't imagine they would be teaching this to her. Maybe they are, but I mean, for people just listen, it's like you can imagine you putting your hands up, right? Like, playing cops and robbers. It goes, hey, freeze. And you put your hands up. That's what she looks like with just her left hand. That is not a proper hand position in load phase at all, not even close. And so, but because of that, right, she's naturally going there because next move, Ryan, if you play it, is the left elbow is going to crash down. Boom. Too hard to do. You can probably get it to where, you can see this. Let's see. It's because we talked about how good he was getting at it. Jinxed him.
It's because of the way this video is formatted. It doesn't really let you.
Yeah. Anyway, you can see it if you watch the video closely. If you're there, we go. That's part right there. Even she's still not there, right? So there's a perfect example. The elbow is still ahead of the wrist there. So for people listening, she's already halfway to the ball. In her hand path, and in her elbow, her top hand elbow is ahead of the wrist. Not good. No bueno. That's injurious. And at best, she's going to have a lot of problems with contact, particularly in the inner half of the plate, right? So you might be able to make contact, but it's going to be way out in front. All right. I know our guest is coming up soon, so we got one more, right?
Yeah. Is the guest ready or no?
Not quite yet. We're just having a problem getting on Zoom.
Okay.
All right. So
last one's going to be quick because that's more of a pet peeve.
Yeah. And there's certainly a lot to kind of break down on this as well. There's a lot we can kind of pick on. Let me just expand this a bit so we can see ever retain.
Okay. Oh, drives me bananas. Okay.
So what he's talking about here is doing side toss. We call it soft toss, right? Mike and I are firm believers in doing soft toss from the front because you're never seeing a ball coming at you from the side, obviously. So what he's explaining, he's throwing the ball up to her front hip, getting her a visual cue so that she knows when it's coming. And then I'll let Mike take it away here in terms of what the results are. Yeah. That we're looking
so
at.
Is that still where he's positioned? Is that still the front or is that the side?
That's side.
That's still side.
So when you're saying front, you want him behind the net.
Straight on.
Yeah. Yeah, behind an L screen.
The net. Okay.
Yeah. The direction that you would normally see a ball coming at your front.
Gotcha.
Now,
right.
with that said, side toss is a really it's prevalent in baseball, softball, diamond sports. I'm not even going to get into her swing and how much momentum she's bringing over her front foot. I'm going to try to leave that alone as much as it makes me crazy. But the overall point here, and you see this a lot, and this is what I'm going to talk about, it is the net, right? For people just listening, it's a softball hitter getting some side toss from her coach, hitting into a screen / net that is, what is that, 8 feet in front of the plate ish? About 8 feet in front of the plate. Okay.
6 feet, maybe. Yeah.
And she's aiming for this net. She's trying to hit balls into this net. And, I see this a lot with coaches, and they celebrate, oh, good, great hitter, working on line drives here, hitting that into the net that's 8 feet in front of you. That's not a line drive. I would say
dribbler up the middle.
Yeah, 80% of these are ground balls. A line drive at the pitcher's knee is a ground ball.
I'm a professional at dribblers up the middle. What's wrong with dribblers up the middle?
There's a lot. Well, perfect example, right? You are a professional hitting dribbles up the middle.
Oh,
right? I mean, That should sort of tell the story.
That should say. All right,
but again,
whatever.
I'll just say it one more time. I've still yet to this day to have a college coach call up about one of my players because he was so amazing hitting ground balls up the middle. Not yet. Maybe.
Well, it looks like our another handsome fellow has joined our podcast. I believe our guest is here. So, Mike, why don't you take that away?
All right, I can take that away. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Can you?
What happened?
Can you take that away?
You take that away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
got you.
Let's go.
Here,
Yeah.
I'll take it away. Joining us from Sarpy Chiropractic out in Nebraska, we have Dr. Rodney White joining the Prove It Live podcast here today. Welcome, Dr. White. Thank you for coming on board.
Thanks for having me, guys. And I don't know who you're talking about with another handsome guest. I guess you kicked him out, and I'm next in line. So
Yeah, well, I mean, this is certainly not an all male review here, but we try our best. So a background on Dr. White. We became not Twitter, but Instagram buddies. And then I found out that Dr. White, who's, as you can hear by his thick Boston accent, played college baseball in Australia. So we have him on maybe to talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, to talk about health and well-being as a battle against this pandemic that we're having. So,
well, it's funny you say with that thick Boston accent of all the places that some of the Midwesterners, I've lived here 11 years. Usually I get asked, am I British? The next one I get most common, am I from the Northeast? I said, well, a little more Southwest, but I guess because you guys say car and water the same way we would, we roll those E and R's, become more of an A or an AH. So I have definitely been mistaken for that. And the first few times that happened, I thought someone was taking the mickey out of me. I'm like, yeah, good one. But there we go.
Well,
Mike,
again, welcome aboard.
What's going on with your Mike? And then what's happening with him? Killing this podcast.
We
hear you fine.
Well,
yeah,
someone just unmuted me. There
you go. Now you're back. All right,
I can hear. I couldn't hear. I had no audio whatsoever.
Maybe Zoom only has like a 4-person limit or 3.5 person. That could be.
All right. What did I miss?
Well, let's see. Not much. We talked.
Yeah, we're just making fun.
I'm only joking.
So,
all right.
Go ahead, Mike.
Jeff.
Do you want to start?
No, go right ahead.
So, we have out here in Massachusetts being a completely red, if not maroon, or blue, if not purple, or what the darkest blue you can state, has one of the highest vaccination rates and also one of the highest death rates. And I have been pounding, you look at the news and no matter left or right, wherever you are on the political spectrum, nowhere on the news have I seen anyone come on and interview someone about actually getting healthy and eating right and exercising. I think that my office should be busting at the seams. So should every gym of people trying to get healthy. And we're doing just the opposite. What are you seeing? I know that you were on all your posts are about getting healthy, eating right, low carb, and just maybe you can kind of have the floor and go into it with us.
Well, it's funny you say it that way because not only is no one really talking about health, we've had 2 years now in the pandemic, right? And we know that risk factor goes up with poor metabolic health. If you're metabolically flexible, meaning, I guess let's talk what's metabolic health. There's measurements they use. The blood pressure's right, cholesterol's right, under a certain weight, simple metrics.
Nothing that this podcast is experiencing.
No judgment whatsoever. However, we've known for 2 years, your risk goes way, 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 way up if you're not metabolically flexible. Not only are people not talking about it, you get attacked for it. And it's quite funny, some of the comments that you get online from, and you guys are probably like me, a random person behind a keyboard, you don't really care what they think of you. It's nice to engage in conversation, but when you're just going to attack someone you've never met, it's incredible that not only we not talk about it, we want to actually stuff down this talk of health.
Right.
I don't understand. That's the one that blows my mind. I get the vaccination arguments. I see both sides of it. You know, I see where people are saying my family, my kid have basically zero risk. And so even if the vaccine is a tiny, tiny, tiny risk, I don't want to go to that. And then I see people saying, well, we're going to vaccinate because we think it'll be just another armory in our tool belt. What I don't get is the be all and end all that I'm just going to vaccinate, do nothing else about my health, and I'll be fine. Because as you said, look at the stats. Some of the highest populated vaccine places are having deaths. And people like to turn everything into a controversy. I don't think anyone has any stats they can blame it on medical procedures. But what I think is probably going on is the more unhealthy you are, the more likely you're probably getting a heavier vaccination percentage. And I think it's showing us that alone isn't going to stop people from falling ill and dying from a respiratory virus. We've never been able to stop one before. I just don't know why we have this arrogance right now. There's this amazing doc out of Hawaii, Zach Bush. And I remember when all this started, he was talking about the numbers, how we're surrounded by something like 40 trillion viruses, bacteria, parasite, fungi, whatever, at any one time. How can we as a human race be so arrogant that we're going to wipe out one? And the only argument I've heard to that is if we could wipe something out, or if this is so different to every other virus, well, then you almost have to assume it's being created. But we don't want to have that argument, which I have no idea. I don't know whether it was gain of function or whatever. I don't really care. But the only way
we have some
be
thoughts, but we'll leave.
Yeah, we have opinions, but you don't want to voice them.
Well, no, because you get screamed at for even, you're not a medical doctor, you're not a scientist, you're not allowed to have that thought. Well, if our scientists and medical doctors did a good job with it and we had more trust, people like us wouldn't be asking these questions. But it's either acting like every other virus, which means we can't eradicate it,
right?
Or it is so novel that it's created somewhere, but we're not allowed to even have that conversation. So that's where I get so stumped, that the health stuff that I talk about as a chiropractor, you, Kevin, as a PT, it's basic foundational health.
Yeah, right.
Why are we not allowed to at least say, do your medical stuff, vaccinate,
yeah,
whatever you want to do?
At least be, as you said, at least a tool in the tool belt, right? I mean, the human body, we could argue, has been around for thousands of years, right? We've survived plagues and famine and natural disasters and everything else by having an immune system. But it seems like immune and system, that's almost like four-letter words. Like you don't hear, literally, I don't hear anybody talking about immune system. I just don't. I don't hear. Well, I always said that Hulk Hogan should be in charge of the pandemic, right? Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and exercise, right? He probably would have done better.
well, early on in this, there was actually MDs on Twitter saying that anyone who says that you can boost their immune system should lose whatever health license they have.
That's insane.
Am I reading this properly?
That's insane.
So how does a vaccine work then?
Right.
I mean,
right.
So you can have a weak immune system, but you can't boost it. That was up there, I think, with the dumbest things I've read. And I've read a lot of dumb things in this last 2 years. And that's still, these were some pretty highly followed MDs making comments like that, which was astounding to me.
Oh, yeah. And it amazes me because, right, this has gotten worse. Kids' health have gotten worse. Their mental health has gotten worse. They've become more sedentary because of all this. Gyms were closed. Parks were closed. And I remember,
parks with fences and lock gates outdoors.
I don't know what they were doing in Nebraska, but here in Mass, they took the basketball hoops off of the backboards, so you couldn't play. I mean, just it blows my mind that isn't one of the main things talked about, right? As something that you can do immediately. Especially take it back to when the vaccines were first rolling out. Not everybody could get them. Even then, they weren't saying, "Hey, look, in the meantime, right? Make sure you're getting your proper nutrients. Make sure that you're getting exercise. You're staying healthy. Use ways to improve your immune system, or by your general health." Nothing. And the people that were talking about that were just getting pushed aside. Which,
shutting down outdoor exercise. So thankfully, we're not that crazy here in the middle of the country. Shutting down outdoor health. Shutting down gyms, which we've seen on the East Coast, was insane, and good for those guys in Jersey who stood up and said, "You can find us all you want."
Remember those guys? Yeah.
I mean, good for them. I'm glad they had the fortitude to do that. I don't know whether I could have stood up to that. As chiropractors, Department of Homeland said we're essential, so we didn't have to close anywhere. You guys were probably the same as a PT, Kevin, because it was all to stop the load on hospitals. And if people are something like 200,000 or 300,000 people a month are going to hospital with back pain in this country, that alone is going to cause an issue, right? But to stop people exercising outside when we know with viruses, how can it spread as easily when you're outdoors because you've got more fresh air? UV light kills things. You're getting more vitamin D. And we have years of research on vitamin D and acute respiratory illnesses. And that's another one I've been attacked for, that you're a quack saying vitamin D would help with this. It hasn't been proven. And you share research after research and they say, well, it's not definitive. Well, how are you ever going to get definitive if you're not putting the money behind it, number one?
Right.
And number two, how much do you need for it to be definitive? When you've got numbers coming out of Europe and Asia early on that was showing if you were under 30 nanograms per whatever their measurement is, you had a 95% hospitalization rate. But if you're over 50, you had a 4% hospitalization rate. This is before the vaccine was even produced. We're wanting a golden bullet. I don't know about you, but 96% to 4%, that's a golden bullet in my mind. Yeah. And so we had all of last summer, or 2020, I first saw those numbers in April 2020. We could have got the entire Midwest and Northeast vitamin D levels checked. It's a $40 test. Government could have said, instead of this $2,000 stimulus, we're going to take $40 off for a test. And if you're low, we're going to give you you don't need $50 worth of supplements. That's what they did in Scotland. And you could have got everyone's vitamin D levels up. And there's arguments that it's not as good as absorption from UV. Fine, but not everyone's going to go outside and do it. Not everyone's body absorbs and makes it better. So at least supplement. And we probably would have cut, you've got to guess, at least half the deaths. And then this whole blocking of treatments. And I get it if treatment was unsafe. I totally get saying, whoa, let's pump the brakes. But when you're talking increasing vitamin D, maybe doing some IV vitamins, even the infamous horse paste, if it doesn't work, fine. But look at the safety profile. And I mean, the safety profile is better than Tylenol. Mm-hmm. Right. You've got more people in hospital with Tylenol. We don't stop that. I saw the other day that the Japanese guy who was part of the invention of it, who got a Nobel Prize for it, talking about it in 2015, that video and then his newest one, I think in 2020, has all been taken off YouTube for spreading misinformation on ivermectin. The guy made it.
It's Dr. Malone, yeah.
Oh, no, not Malone. This Japanese guy, although Malone now, there's a huge petition to get Spotify to shut down Joe Rogan because he's had this doctor on that 270 doctors and scientists have signed this thing saying he's spreading misinformation on mass formation psychosis. Spotify needs to follow YouTube and shut him down. It's
he's got 9 patents.
Yep.
9. Do you know how difficult it is to get a patent? He has 9 of them. So you could actually go and look that up. You can search his name and you'll see 9 patents. So
exactly. So you can argue he's not the father of the RNA technology, but he definitely was a part of it. But you can go and say the Wright brothers didn't make the Boeing 747, but we still credit them with the early part of flight.
Yeah, fine, of course.
And he's one of the architects.
There's no doubt about that. There was a great Twitter. The scientist went through and looked at it. This engineering guy, he broke it all down and he showed his patents. He showed when he changed companies and which company then took on RNA stuff. So I don't mind people fact checking if he said something wrong. I think we should always call out people to prove something if they've said it wrong. Sure. But to just flat out say, no, he's a liar, he's a quack, he's out.
Right.
This man has the credentials to talk about it. That's what I don't get. I don't know how.
If he doesn't, who does? That's the thing.
Right. He's got more credentials than Fauci on it.
Right. By a long shot. Yeah. Right.
Well, don't forget, with Fauci, we're listening to a guy who has a published paper that said AIDS was contracted by airborne spread. Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's also on record saying in SARS-1, chloroquine works for it.
Yeah.
So why did we block hydroxychloroquine, which is a better version of chloroquine, when SARS-2 is about 80% similar to SARS-1? And when did Fauci last treat a patient?
No,
we're shutting down doctors who
treat people on the front line.
I see ICU respiratory specialists who said, hang on, we're killing people with ventilators. Let's do early treatment. And then they start this COVID alliance group. And that's just now gets slammed as quackery. Well, again, you could do that if you're in the hospitals doing something for treatment. But when you send people home and say, wait till you're too sick and come back to hospital, there's not many diseases that do well with that level of treatment.
Right.
No.
So we're not saying to bypass medicine or do anything like that. It's like, get healthy. And if you do get sick, there are a lot of safe things to try. And then if it doesn't work, you can still go to hospital. You're just adding some steps in there. That's what I don't understand. That's what blows my mind with this whole thing.
Yeah. So we look at what? Cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, exercise and diet are number one, right?
Mhm.
Exercise, you can't, you got to build up your immune system. You're going to go through chemo, lose weight. But for COVID, it's nowhere in the top 50.
No, and you just mentioned the top two killers on the planet. Cardiovascular and cancer by far kill more people than probably every other disease or health issue combined, right? And you could, if you throw diabetes in there with cardiovascular, for sure in this country, cancer is almost down to 1 in 2 people are going to get it. And you're right. So no matter what your treatment is for it, the healthier people tend to do better en masse with cancer, with the treatment, with cardiovascular. Is there a small percentage of people with genetics that does affect things? Of course, but we know genetics doesn't predetermine, it just predisposes. But like you just said, Kevin, so why then, and all those things matter for the flu and other respiratory viruses, but why is COVID on its island here where you're dangerous if you improve vitamin D, exercise, eat healthy, do some IV vitamins, even throw some very safe off-label drugs at it that might not help, but they might. Why is it not being spoken about? And this is why they've created so many conspiracy theories.
And you're a pariah if you mention it, right? It's not like you're saying, listen, I need you to stand on one foot, hang over the bridge, turn sideways, and let the waterfall fall on your head, right? We're saying we need diet and exercise. And I mean, you go to CVS or Walgreens, aisle 14 on both sides, there's a bazillion vitamins. So they're out there for some reason, just not for COVID, apparently.
Well, when I had someone attacking me on my TikTok channel saying that not only is vitamin D supplementation not going to work, it's dangerous, and they shared some journal article about vitamin D excessiveness or overuse. And when you read the article, it even says this is so much more rare than under vitamin D, like not having a nut deficiency. And the examples they used were so few and far between. For you to have too much vitamin D and get kidney calcification or anything is so hard to do. And if you take it with magnesium and vitamin K, you're almost making that nil, your chance of doing that. You'd have to swallow bottles of it. And no one's that silly, I would hope, to do that. And if they are, they've got other issues anyway. So not only are people saying don't do it, they're now promoting that it's dangerous. But how many people are ending up in hospital because they overdosed on vitamins and good food? I mean,
not many.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if they're that concerned, if we're that concerned as a society about the safety of vitamins and not taking too much, then you wouldn't have, what is there, 9,000 brands of vitamin D you can go and buy. You can go to any shop and get it, right? It's readily available. It's accessible. Comes with no warning labels.
Exactly. And if we're going to hold it to that standard, why don't we look at then certain drugs? Right. The number now of people who die of opioid overdose in this country is over 100 people a day. That's insane. That's a drug company created issue. Go back and look at Vioxx. There's somewhere between 40 to 60,000 people who died from that. I've seen some scientists look at that and say, we think it might be 500,000. There's internal papers from Vioxx where they knew it. They literally say in the paper, this thing, it's a shame that it's dangerous to people because it could be very good for the thing we want it to do. And it can make us a lot of money, but it kills people. That's a shame, but we're going to release it anyway. But you can take that to any of these industries. Look at what glyphosate now is doing, the active ingredient in Roundup. That company, Monsanto, is getting sued for hundreds of millions of dollars and losing every time because they have about 80 papers from internal scientists showing, no, it's very safe. Every other scientist around the world has said, no, that's a crop of garbage. Look at the cancer it's causing, right? So are we going to hold vitamins to that high level? Well, let's do that with drugs.
With drugs.
With other chemicals that we get sprayed on our food with hazmat suits because they can't have it, but we eat it. I mean, that's the argument I don't understand when people say, well, food and vitamins can be dangerous. Well, so can working out in the gym if you drop a kettlebell on your head. But I mean, that's about your odds of. I saw the shared data on kids. A child under the age of 10 has the same risk of dying from a sharp object as they do of COVID. I mean, we're picking and choosing our metrics that we want to apply to,
and then magnifying any discrepancy or that sort of time.
Big
so, we can talk about COVID all day, but I wanted to pivot, Doc, and talk about, we have a lot of athletes, families listen to this show. Talk to us about nutrition, what should an athlete be eat, the food that we see even in school cafeterias now is like process. I mean, these kids go, essentially like, you got a baseball player goes in, has his breakfast in the morning, eats some crappy lunch at noon, then maybe gets something, goes out 3:30, 4 o'clock to play a game. What's healthy nutrition like? And where would people, the first thing that's going to come up, well, it costs so much to eat well. Yeah. I mean, you go into Whole Foods or Whole Check, and it does. I mean,
it is true.
But what can people do? Like, what are like some basic, like 4 or 5 things that someone can do to really help their son or daughter eat better or have better nutrition?
Easy. And on your point there too, look at the subsidies that our fast food and sugar companies get, yet we don't give any of those subsidies to local farmers who want to grow organic, right? Now, diet is such a hot point. I've made recommendations in the past that I look back on now and think, oh, that was a horrible recommendation. But I think with diet, like health, all of us are unique. And I think there's certain fundamentals that work for people. Like I know some people who do amazing on a carnivore-only diet. All they do is eat meat and they do phenomenal. I know other people who do really well on a mixed diet. I know a small number of people who do well on a vegan diet. Outside of people actively undergoing cancer treatment, because too much protein does activate a pathway called the mTOR pathway that does drive some cancers. I'm seeing more and more evidence that, and this might upset some people, that the vegan way is, I personally don't do well on it. I haven't seen many people who do well on it. I think the majority of teenage athletes, it's got to be real foods. The more processed it is, the more their blood sugar is going to do this all day. They're not going to be mentally strong. They're going to crash by 3 p.m. and then they're meant to practice and they've got no energy. They get these blood sugar rushes.
So when you say real food, because you're talking stuff that's grown, in the ground or off a tree.
Living
meat? Is it living?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it living? Was it meat?
Was it living?
Or was it grown? But then we have to be very careful with things that are grown. For parents who really want to dive into this, Dr. Stephen Gundry is a cardiovascular guy. He wrote The Plant Paradox, and he introduces the concept of lectins. And certain plants, unlike animals that can run away or defend themselves, how does a plant stop itself from just being overeaten and wiped out, right? So a lot of plants have lectins in them. Now, some plants want to be eaten, or they want certain parts to be eaten, especially things with the seed in it, so that the animal will eat it and drop the seed and then the plant will grow. But these lectins are very, very inflammatory. They're high in legumes like beans, certain superfoods like kale and some of the greens that we're being pushed to eat. A lot of people with autoimmune issues say, but I'm eating so healthy. And when we take out the lectins, they do fantastic. So we have to be careful when we say whole foods. But I also think for the majority of people, even if you're eating a fruit or vegetable high in lectins, it's still better than the sugar and the processed junk and all the chemicals.
So what would be a sign, what would be a sign of that? If eating the lectin, what would you see? Or how would someone present?
A lot of gut bloating, irritable bowel type symptoms, skin conditions. So dairy and lectins are the two biggest
issues.
Proponents of skin issues. Wheat is an abuser like that too. So if your child is getting a lot of eczema, a lot of bad acne, they're probably eating something that in kids, though, there's probably a lot of sugar and processed stuff. But
Sure.
if you've wiped all that out and they're still getting that, I think good quality protein is super vital for the growing athlete. They need that energy throughout the day, but the number one thing is good quality fats. So avocados, using I really like the brain octane oil from Bulletproof. It's the MCT oil, which is the best part that they pull out of coconut oil. You can drown your salads in that. You can pour it on a steak. You can pour it in a smoothie. Getting
Coffee.
those good fats, coffee, the Bulletproof coffee, right? Good fats to increase that omega-3 and get rid of the bad oils. If a parent's going to read a label, anything that's got vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil, it's killing you and it's inflaming you to the moon. And that's going to wipe out kids' energy as well. So if you can take that out and the sugar out, and then add in fruits that are low glycemic, like berries are really, really good to stop the blood sugar from spiking. A good quality whey protein smoothie is going to help keep that blood sugar more level instead of this that kids have all day because they're just chowing down on carbs and processed garbage. But for an athlete, for sure, good fats and good protein. So, and if you're going to get meat, remember the old saying, it's not you are what you eat, you are what your food ate. And so if you have an animal that's being pumped full of grains and corn, like here in Nebraska, why do farmers pump them full of that stuff? It's to fatten them up.
Right.
Well, what's going to happen when we eat that stuff? We're going to fatten up. It's all inflammatory. Corn and grains are full of omega-6, which is pro-inflammatory. So finding some good quality grass-fed meat, and that's cheaper if you find I get my meat from a place called White Oak Pastures. It's a regenerative farm in Georgia. They ship, they do a great job. It's cheaper than the grass-fed meat you find in whole paycheck. So I think the quality of meat and the quality of fats will keep these kids. They'll build muscle better.
That was my next question. A lot of kids ask, well, how do I get bigger? How do I put on 10 or 15 pounds of muscle mass without eating junk?
Yeah, good quality protein, and there's some really, really good quality, safe, non-drug abused peptides, right? So everyone hears peptides, they think injecting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company called DNA Health that I get some of my just oral peptides from. They're not on drug ban lists, a lot of these things, and they're not specifically designed for you putting on muscle. But if you take them and you eat a good diet and you're lifting weights, you will for sure add some better quality muscle too. But good fats and meat, even without the peptide, is going to help. Obviously, all the kids you're talking about are already going to be lifting because that strength training is huge. You've got to get your cardiovascular in, but doing more high intensity work will improve their lung capacity while also putting on muscle, especially if there's some body weight work in there. Even something as simple as the 7-minute workout is going to get people more strength and cardio than an hour of running because you're doing push-ups, tricep dips, squats, wall sits, stuff like that, crunches. It's all going to that's all helping. I think they still need their endurance work. But I like the kids to do more endurance where they're really pushing their numbers, like their VO2. So they might do the hardest workout I think that's out there. And I try and do this once every 2 or 3 weeks because it's too hard on you. It's the 4x4. So you want to try and do 5 sets where you do 4 minutes as hard as you can, whether it's running, rowing, cycling, whatever. It burns the bejeepers out of you, your lungs, your body hurts. Then you have a 4 minute of just walk really slow, try and let your heart rate get down as much as possible. Then boom, you go 4 minutes again. By the 5th one, if you're on the treadmill, you're probably running at like 6 because you're just dying. But that will improve their endurance and their capacity to make decisions under stress on the baseball field or wherever else. It will go through the roof. So that's a great one. You just can't over abuse it because you'll injure yourself. And then making sure they're doing some other not quite as crazy high intensity stuff. Maybe it's 30 seconds all out sprint, then 4 minutes relax, and you might do 5 sets of that. Doing the little 10-minute just crazy workouts. All of that's going to help put that muscle on as well. I think I look back to my days playing baseball and rugby. We did too much running You know, like on the rugby field, it was like, all right, 10 laps of the field before we start. And at least we did have some sort of suicide drills and sprints in there, which looking back was good. But I think we focus probably too much on long cardio where you can get that lung endurance up while also building muscle with more intense stuff. That's probably where I'd go with that.
I have one question. This comes up a lot training, young athletes and with baseball and softball, youth athletes, elite select travel, that sort of thing. It's a lot of tournament play, double headers, etc. What's something that's good for in between games? In between a double header, you're playing 3 games in a day because at these tournaments they get a lot of crap food, right? Yeah. And we try to monitor that the best we can, but and parents don't know. So, what would you recommend for something that the suggested athletes bring if they have a long day of games, etc.?
I would definitely, and they should be doing this every day anyway, is either adding trace minerals or Himalayan salt to their water, because that's going to give them more electrolytes and you don't need the sugary garbage of Gatorade and stuff like that.
Right.
I would also take things that are high in energy, which again is going to be good quality protein, good quality fats. So I would, if I could transport back to a 16-year-old and do it again now, I would take grass-fed meat sticks or some grass-fed jerky, right? That's good protein. Yeah. Probably just an avocado with some Himalayan salt sprinkled on it and just lock it back up and then take a little spoon and dig into that. Because that fat is going to give them that energy. Making sure as well, what that'll also do is probably help their body with injury because you're giving them that protein. Maybe even a collagen supplement, just a powder to throw in their drink too, just to, in case, because I remember the worst thing that in tournaments, the number of injuries people got because you'd play, you'd maybe tweak something, then you get cold, then you play again. And now you just keep blowing it up. And it's dangerous to ice in between sometimes because for every 15 minutes of ice, we really need an hour of them warming up again.
Right.
And how much is that happening in tournament play, especially a pitcher who's a stud, right? And then they're maybe going to go play shortstop or center field. Their arms up. They're now not even warming up, and then they have to make a center fielder's running in, making the play to home. All of a sudden, that pitching injury he just had in the first game, he's just wrenched it. So I think that kind of thing helps. So it's good quality, high energy foods, making sure the electrolytes are in their water, making sure they stay fairly mobile during games, which you guys are probably, with the PT background, you're already all over that. So I don't know. Does that help? Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I think for me, the last question I have is what do you give for people in recovery from an injury? What do you think are some superfoods that they could eat to help speed that process along?
Recovery, definitely bone marrows and bone broths are great because you get so much of the collagen and all the healing properties. If they're recovering, I would also add in collagen protein as a supplement. There's tons of different supplements out there that are great mixtures from good quality companies that are going to be for healing of injuries. Vitamin C gets used a lot in that as well. If the kids have access to IV, there's some great IV things you can throw in there that's going to speed it up. Some of these peptides that are on the legal side, not the injector. Although I think in the next few years, peptides will probably be off the whole doping list anyway, because they're really, you're just getting a more focused protein or amino acid of what you're getting in the food you eat anyway.
Right.
It's different to a steroid. So I think there's good supplementation and the good eating properties follow anyway. Actually, a really good healing strategy too. It depends on the child or the adult. Anytime you can do a 3-day or more water fast where you're just drinking water, now you put your salt or your minerals in your water too. What happens when we cross about 18 to 24 hours? We start to go through a process called autophagy, where our body will come in because you're not having to digest and break down food. It's one less stress on the body. When you do these fasts, you also don't want to work out because you don't want your body having to repair new injury. What happens is your body sends out all its cleanup cells and it starts to clean up injured cells. Some of that could be injured cells in a damaged muscle It could be a bad lung cell, whatever it is. And then we start to lay down new stem cells. So anyone who does a water fast for longer than 3 days will tell you, I started to get pain at this old injury site that I haven't felt for years. And that's great because the body is now cleaning up and healing some old scar tissue that had just said it's in the too hard basket. So
that's cool.
If a kid wants to do that, now don't ever just go straight into a 3 to 5 day water fast. You've got to make sure you're eating high fat foods leading up to it, because you don't want to be stuck in sugar burning, because otherwise you'll get to 18 hours. Oh my gosh, I'm faint and my blood sugar's crashed. So you've always got to prep towards it. And I think if kids use the intermittent fasting principles anyway, they're going to get some of that all the time. So eating in really at least under an 8-hour window, but I prefer a 4 to 6 hour window. And then you eat twice, and it's very good quality meals, protein and fats. You don't have to count your calories or anything then. And then once a week, go 24 hours. Maybe if you have a day off training, eat dinner at night. You don't train the next day. Don't eat till dinner the next night, but then have a feast day as well to train your body that, hey, you're never starving. If you're doing that consistently, a 3-day water fast becomes a piece of cake. So that's always a good healing technique just in general too. It's amazing what our body does when we stop asking it to process foods and, more important, chemicals.
Wow.
Like a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly
absolutely.
what it is. That's everything I just wasted time on. You just nailed it.
Awesome. Well, hey,
All
Doc,
right.
thanks for coming on. I truly appreciate it. You were very enlightening for sure on nutrition and all things COVID. I appreciate very much coming on.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. And well, let's hook up a time somewhere soon, Kevin, and get you on our podcast.
Yeah, that would be great.
We have a lot of families and student athletes. There's baseball's big here. And so we have a lot of listeners that, I mean, just the 5 minutes I saw of you guys breaking down the swing and on the video before I came on is awesome. I think there'd be tons of people who'd love to follow this podcast.
That'd be great.
I
think, doesn't Nebraska have some sort of college baseball tournament every year? I think, right?
Something big down there.
Small thing.
Something. I think,
about the only thing we have outside of high football here.
Where can people follow you on?
They can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook. They just look up Rodney White DC. They can follow our business. So it's Sarpy Chiropractic, but it's just Sarpy Chiro, spelled SARPY for those who don't understand my accent. We're pretty active.
We got it up here. We knew it.
It's Boston. You're in good company. Yeah.
You guys are fine with it. So they can find us on any and all of those. We try and just be available on all of them and just try and help people get healthier, because let's face it, there's no one really out there doing it for them. So
true.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
Cool.
And,
thanks, Rod.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. That was great.
All right. Well, I guess that was pretty good. Very enlightening. Good information on nutrition, stuff I've never heard about. I think you guys know I've done some intermittent fasting before, which I think has been probably my best tool at keeping my weight down. So I don't think trying it for 3 days might be a little tough.
Phenomenal information though. I mean, we're in this world and we're not experts, obviously, in the nutrition part, it's like someone like Rodney is, but we have a decent idea. That some of the information really blew my mind. So I think
that was good stuff.
Really
good
informative.
Stuff.
I'm going to definitely make sure that a lot of our players will watch this episode for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing the chiropractic PT we have so many things that we believe in and we, spinal alignment and all that kind of stuff. I wish that, we had more stuff on nutrition. I think it might have been, it was like, hey, nutrition. And
right.
There wasn't much on.
It was like calorie and
hey,
everything.
You should, not eat that or whatever. But, the chiropractors really, supplements, nutrition, they really have the knowledge. I mean, that's something I just don't have the knowledge of at all. So
all
cool.
Right.
Well, it was good.
Yeah. Good show. Ran a little over today, but I think it was worth it.
That's right.
It was a fun show. I got to get these it keeps going in and out.
I know what's going on.
I don't know. I hope these.
We'll figure it out.
These are like a lot of money. These headphones. It better not be the headphones. They're like less than a year old. All right, but
All right,
I'll get these fixed for next time, for sure.